All right. Hello, folks. Those of you watching on YouTube, hello with a little delay, and Twitch perhaps with a little less delay, but hello, folks. I'm here with my good buddy DaShaun.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this. The last one was so much fun, and
Yeah.
yeah, and it seems like timing is right. I've been watching your shows. It's fun. I like having you on in the background, and
Yeah, and lately
yeah,
I've
I'm
been
excited.
pairing with a friend of mine on a new app, and so I sprung for the full, or at least the next level up in StreamYard, so I can get the higher resolution
There
and
you go.
other stuff. So now I'm eager to invite other people on board, but you're always a favorite.
That's one of the features of StreamYard compared to what we might have done with OBS.
Yeah,
With StreamYard, just would you like to come on and talk about what you're working
right.
on?
Yep,
Here's the link. Let me send it to you. And then they can
yep,
just literally jump in the show if they've got a
yep,
browser.
yep.
Makes
Yeah,
it really
there's
easy.
stuff I miss from OBS. I'm a bit of a control freak, but I'm trying to not get too wrapped around that stuff. Like, oh, why can't I do this? Why can't I push these things here? And
Yeah.
other things I have to do differently. But yeah, it's great for sort of bringing folks on without that person having to do really much at all.
You know, that paradigm of I want to have all the control and I do things a little bit different and I'm used to doing it this way. But 90% of the stuff is done the way you want it. Like
Mhm.
what's the value of this 10% of I really wish I could do this versus the I can pick up and I can start a show and I can invite people and I get all these other things. Good. There is a trade off there. There's Jonas.
Yes. Hey
Welcome.
there. Welcome.
And there's a trade off there. And I see people make that trade off towards the 10% is really important versus they're going to spend more time on working on that 10% than having 90% of the things done and moving forward on the other
Yeah.
things that they need to do. And
Yeah.
I've seen that trade off and that battle in many, many different ways on this software journey.
Yeah.
But yeah,
What I'm hey, Sweetie. Yeah, what I'm hoping for is that they open up some kind of API to make it possible to do the things that I can do. It's funny. It's like there's things I can do just really trivially in OBS. Like I want to add an image. I want to add this thing. I want to add content over
yeah,
here that I define.
yeah.
So that uh, that's what I'm missing.
The
So
thing,
hopefully they'll get
yeah.
there.
Like, and I got really surprised with the layout, editing the layout. I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting it. I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. But then they gave us the ability to manage our layouts.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think I'm missing is like the overlay, like have an
Yes.
ability to overlay some HTML or web page. Like
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I feel like I'm missing the most. But everything else I'm pretty good with.
Yeah, I'd like a little more control over some of the camera stuff, and being able to pull in like chat. Uh, and I know that they're limited by Twitch, that they can't support. Uh, like I can comment and it'll go out to both YouTube and Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Guests, it's only going to go out to YouTube because Twitch doesn't support that. And it's like, okay,
Yep.
can I figure that out? And well, all right, I guess I'll deal with that.
Yeah.
So those it's some of those things where I miss them, but yeah, the trade-off for being able to bring folks on
Yeah. The
is often worth it.
multi-platform thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. The multi-streaming is the other thing. Like I can't from OBS unless I use another service like a Restream.
yep.
I can't. My computer does not have the bandwidth to multi-stream in a way that basically that would work reliably. So yeah.
To handle the chat, like this morning, I realized that I'm pretty good about like, hey, somebody does a chat, and if I'm streaming to multiple platforms, I gotta put it up on the screen so they can see that Jonas says
Right.
hi.
Yeah.
But my son, my 10-year-old son, was in here and he created some startup images, and he's taking an interest in it. But then he
Cool.
was monitoring the chat, and he's like, "Oh, so and so says this," and he just pop it up. I was like, "Oh, that has." So I
Nice.
didn't have to monitor the chat. He's bringing
Hey,
those messages up,
producer.
and yeah, he was my
He's your producer.
producer. That's
Yeah.
exactly what he was doing. He didn't know what that meant, but that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. Hey, Astrid made it. All right. Astrid's one of my big fans.
Yay.
Well, let's get started. So I put together a little Trello workspace to keep track of what do I need DaShaun's help on. And so here's our list. So we're gonna do this, and DaShaun's gonna help me because a lot of this stuff I don't know much about. At least when it gets down to the implementation level. Theoretically, conceptually, sure.
Yeah.
Some of it, like the upgrades, should be straightforward, but there's some related stuff. So should we do metrics first?
Yeah, let's add metrics.
Let's put it in working on.
So again, I don't know the dependencies. So over in my screen, I'm going to start.screen.io, and I'm just hitting the dependencies, and I'm looking for the Prometheus dependency, and I think that's all that I need. I think that's all that I need. Is if I go and I explore it. Oops, we both prefer Maven over Gradle. Yes. It is called the Micrometer Registry Prometheus, and the group name is io.micrometer, and the artifact ID is micrometer-registry.
Registry.
Yep, and then io.micrometer. Micrometer-registry-prometheus.
Group is io micrometer.
io.micrometer. Yep.
Okay. Updating. Yes, there we go.
There we go. And
that's all we need.
The scope says runtime. That's it. That's it. So now if we start this application, what that is doing, you have the actuator. You have the actuator.
I do. Let me check what my what do I have exposed. I've got health info metrics.
Wonderful. That's all we need.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's all we need. We might, let me peek. It might be separate for the Prometheus registry. Let me go just quick peek here. I did this.
Oops, it failed to start. Because, what did it not like about CLI? Docker? Is Docker not running?
Docker's running.
What does it say here? Yeah, it ran.
I'm going to add one more endpoint to your line 21 there. Health info metrics. I'm going to add Prometheus, Prometheus.
What do we think? Why did this is host network mode?
Well, let's make sure it's not us. Let's comment out our Prometheus.
Oh, I didn't. Well, I ran it before we added the Prometheus. But do we think the dependency itself is a problem? Let's try that.
I think it should be, but let's just make sure.
I don't think so either. But let's go back just to be sure.
One of the things that I'm trying to do also is live inside of my IDE a little bit more.
I just totally live inside of my IDE. Huh. All right.
So this is my default here. I'm fine with restarting stuff. Like I'm fine with like going, Docker, you're acting funny. Let me go shut you down and start back up.
That looks fine. I wonder what I expect. I wonder, which would be really bad. So I don't use Docker. I use OrbStack.
Okay.
I wonder the database is getting started. Let's stop it manually and restart. I wonder if OrbStack is somehow incompatible, has made itself incompatible in some way.
What I found myself saying this morning is I typically learn more when things don't go right.
Yeah, it's no fun when stuff goes right.
So yeah, I'm comfortable when things are broken. That's when things are broken most of the time. Look at this. I didn't get to read it all, but yeah,
Oops, sorry.
I love that you're upgrading. Yeah, adding it. Yes,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yep.
Like this is great.
Oh, good. Your calendar pop up to this job. Great.
Yay.
Yeah. So, and of course I have, OrbStack said, hey, let's upgrade this morning. So of course,
Yeah,
me
what could
being
possibly
the
go wrong?
upgrade, what could possibly go wrong?
I do the same thing.
So let's see, these are in use. What containers are running? That's fine. That's interesting. That's interesting that it's aware that Ensembler is the thing that's talked to the database. How did it know that?
So one of those things that I worked on this week was I was pulling in a new library. I wasn't sure that new library worked. I deliver all of my projects to Raspberry Pis. So I built the native images and I pulled in a new library that I hadn't used before. And when things didn't work in the native image, things didn't work, but my tests were passing, right? My unit tests were all passing. So I was like, well, how come this isn't working? And my default response, my gut was like, oh, I wonder if that library is using reflection or something or proxies and it's not compatible with AOT processing. It doesn't have the metadata needed for Graal VM. So what I did was I made an integration test that builds my project, run all the unit tests, and then if I want, I can run this integration test that actually generates a native image so that I can run my tests against it. But I'm using test containers.
Right.
So I got stuck on how do I get this native image to load up this test container for Redis? How do I make that happen? How do I feed the property? I can't use the service connector because it's in an image. It's image to image. So I'm not like feeding something out into my unit test. How could I get this AOT native image to talk to my test containers? How do I give it the right properties and how do I get them to see each other in the same network? And I got stuck and I was like, oh, I don't know. Jonas was there. I said, hey, here's what we're trying to do. We knew kind of what we wanted to do, but we didn't know the language. We didn't know what methods we need to call or what we need to do. So I reached out to Oleg from Test Containers, and it was maybe like 15 minutes. I might have taken a break, and I sent him a message. 20 minutes later, after I send him a message, he sends me a repository. He's like, hey, I know exactly what you're doing. Here's what you need to do. So then I separated out my JVM tests, my normal unit tests. I put those into an abstract class. I extended them for the JVM, and then I took the exact same class and I extended that same abstract to use it with the native image. But I got it so that builds a native image, uses the same test container the exact same way, give it a different port for rest assured to know which port to use, but it's connecting the exact same way and everything's passing. So at that point, I knew that my native image is going to work the same way as my JVM image, and the problem was somewhere else, and it was with my Redis configs when I got to production. But it was cool.
Yeah,
that whole thing, the
yeah.
ensemble, knowing that, hey, here's the Postgres. The way I set it up as I defined a new network, and here's the network that we're going to use for this test. So use that same network when you deploy that native image so that you can see that there's a Redis instance there, and you can just call it by its name. You give it an alias, and you can call it Redis. So that issue, what I just saw with the ensembler, seeing that Postgres was running, I saw that same thing.
See if or anything orb stack. No, there's nothing at least known. Let's see.
So is this repo? Can I get to this repo?
You can, yes. Let me give you the.
I'll play along.
I'll actually put it here in chat so everybody can see it because it's github.com/dual-ted ensembler.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'll pull down the same thing and we'll see. Do I get the same behavior? This is kind of a default, right?
Yeah, I was gonna see if I can downgrade my orb stack. Because I don't know if I want to spend too much time sitting in the debugger into. If I wasn't streaming, I might spend an hour doing that, but I'm not gonna.
But yeah, we'll see here.
Do
so
that here.
I'm gonna do. I use the GitHub client. I'm gonna do gh repo clone ted/ensembler.
So where does it get inspect response from? Here, inspected. Inspected has size of 1.
And I'm pulling up. I have Docker running, not orb stack. So I'm just gonna pull it up and see if I can make it run. I'm gonna try to stay inside of my IDE.
So what ID does it think it has? Oh, that's interesting. So the PS response ID it got was the shortened ID for the entire.
Oh.
So when it did a Docker PS, it got this short ID.
Yep.
Which is the prefix for the full ID, which is why it didn't find it in the map because it doesn't match. I think that's a bug somewhere. I don't know if that's a bug in the expectation of default Docker Compose, or if it's orb stack not supposed to provide a full ID. I'm not sure.
Right.
But that's what's going on. So how did it get?
Well, like, from
the running
Docker
PS
CLI,
responses.
I can give it the short or the long, right? The API should allow me to do both.
Yeah, so it ran run compose stream filters, run compose. So that started up the compose, and then it got the running responses.
That is interesting.
Yes, if you don't know evaluate expression, like, it's funny, like, because I do TDD most of the time. The only time I'm sitting in the debugger is when I'm doing this, when I'm trying to figure out Spring or some other library or framework. I don't do it on my own. I rarely do it on my own code. And so sometimes I get out of practice. But the debugger in IntelliJ is so incredibly rich that it's really worth times learning it if you're not already familiar with it. Yes.
So
Fixer Report says, I only debug other people's code. Yep. Yeah, so it looks like when it calls whatever.
Mine's not coming up either. Cannot
Interesting.
Invoke Docker CLI inspect response.
Interesting.
I'm getting the same error.
Huh.
So now.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good because then I won't bother with futzing with orb stack.
Yeah, so this raises the question like, hey, I'm pulling down images. I can see that it's pulling them down. Is this a problem with the Docker Compose plugin?
It's weird though because this was working before. So
okay,
I wonder what's changed.
Okay, let me do what version of Java am I running?
Yes, you, James.
I'm running 2101. I don't know which one.
So
America.
my runtime is SDK 20, which is weird. I don't see how that would have anything to do with it.
Yeah, I'm using the Liberica 2101, but I'm getting the same results. I was just kind of looking like, hey, what things can we eliminate?
Yeah, so like if I do a Docker PS, I get this container. So I guess the question is, and
So
I don't know how
that's the
much
other thing
longer I
is
want to spend on that, but
why is it still
why?
up?
So so what it looks like is happening is it runs the Docker Compose. The Docker
Mhm.
Compose successfully completes, and now it's trying to find the specific container ID so that it can connect to it or do whatever it needs to do.
Okay,
But this PS response, where is that coming from? Because that ID is wrong. That's what. So where is
right.
that coming from? That's iterating through the running PS responses, which comes from here. What is that ID? It's a string. And it went through inspected. So what did inspect do? That's so weird because it should be just taking the IDs it gets, mapping it, basically creating a map out of it. And that's a string. And IDs is a list of strings. And then it runs that inspect command. Oh, so it gets the list from one API and feeds it into another. Oy.
Okay.
So I wonder, but it's, I wonder if that, I'll do one other thing. Compose ID here. I think I'm not going to try and troubleshoot this much more. I think let's work around it. Because I can always just let it run. Can always start up the Docker Compose manually and default back to that.
So let's just do that then.
Yeah.
Let's
I'm gonna have to
and then change the Docker Compose.
Where's Docker Compose?
True to false. Where is it?
So
On line 29.
I'm just going to remove the dependency.
Okay.
That should start, although since the database isn't running, I expect it, this is me and my predictions, I expect it to fail because the container is not running. And, oh, did it not re-import Maven?
So are you passing, how are you passing the username and password to your app? Is it getting it from application properties?
Yes. So there's an application properties, the local, where is that? Here.
Okay.
So the local is for when running local. Otherwise, it uses the Railway profile, which then gets it from the environment variables.
Okay.
So these get it from here. All right. So now it's failing because the container is not running. So let's, although it says it's running. How'd that get running?
Wait. It says it's running.
Did it
so
not?
This Docker PS. Mine's not running. W spring boot run.
So
Starting, and this time it says, okay, localhost 5432 is not there. It's not running. So now I'm going to do Docker compose up. All right, I should have done up with dash D, right? So now Docker Compose is up, and nw spring boot run.
Let's run that.
Oh, I'm localhost 5432 refused. Why? It's just not up yet.
There we go. So I had to bring up the container directly. I'm not sure. Maybe the compose setup is different. I'm not sure, but I'm able to get it up and running.
All right. I'm now wondering why.
Yes, I like light mode. Sorry.
When I stand up, I get a different port. Oh, so I got to use the local profile.
Yes, the local profile should be default, but maybe I didn't set that up right. Yeah, it should use the local profile by default.
So how come when I stand up with Docker Compose?
Yeah, if I start with Docker Compose, it doesn't work. I had to run the container directly.
Got it. Okay.
I'm not sure what Compose is doing differently than my other setup.
I think I know.
Probably.
I think I have to do 5432:5432.
Is that not?
Because when I stand it up, I get a different
port. Okay. So this should be 5432 on both sides.
I think something like that. Because when I stand it up, it
That
knows
sounds
that
right.
that's the port it's running on, but exposes a different port.
Let's try that. So let's. So SU James, the app is deployed in production, but it's a private app, so you wouldn't really be able to see much. I can show it off a little bit later.
Still says, what am I doing now? Oh, I got to restart my Docker Compose.
So let me restart. Let me stop. Let me run Docker Compose.
Yeah, now it should work.
No, we can't do that. Let me.
Oh, I still got a bug.
Let's restart that.
Oh, but this is different. I got a send grid.
Oh, you probably won't be able to run it because it's going to pick up some properties that are private to me.
Yep, there you go. So at least I'm connecting to Postgres.
But yeah, as long as you get to the connected to Postgres, then we know that
right.
That's where you need to be. So let's try that.
So cool. So now I think that changed to line 5. I think that might be the one. So does that fix it?
That didn't fix it for me.
It didn't fix it. Oh,
I wonder if
restart.
I did restart.
Restart your Postgres.
So
because when I do Docker PS, I should see 0.0.0.0 port 5432 gets forwarded to the Postgres containers port 5432.
Oh, I may not have the compose bin because OrbStack doesn't have that.
Oh, well, that would be an issue.
Let's see. Compose. Yeah, it says I can. Let's go check that out. Docker. Yeah, it's there. IntelliJ seems to be having trouble connecting to it.
Interesting.
Maybe because it's not in local bin. But let me.
Well, when
let me stop that. And
yeah. Docker dash compose and Docker compose are two different things. This is real.
So it says listening on port 5432. Oh, it's Docker dash and not. I don't know who to blame for that. All right, let's see. So that's up. Let's see if this can connect to that.
So when I changed that port in my Docker compose,
yeah, that worked.
Fantastic.
I always forget about this.
Yes.
Every single time.
Well, hey, we checked the box. It wasn't on our agenda, but we still checked the box.
So So Docker Compose is set up correctly, but there's something wrong with the Docker Compose Spring Boot thingy. I don't know what to call it.
The plugin?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yes. Yes, I've seen that, yeah.
And yes, what fun. All right. Well, what were we doing?
Hey, like that's the thing. Like we can go meander down different ways. We
Well,
were trying
it
to
was
get our
fun.
app started.
Yeah, it was funny because when I was sort of planning this stream, it's like, are we going to have enough to fill 2 hours? And if it takes half an hour to get the application started, then yes,
Easy.
I think we'll
No
fill
problem.
it. All right, so all right, let me do this. Let me stop
So now
that.
your application is running.
And
We were concerned that the changes that we made might have caused it to not work, but now it's working.
Yeah, so let me do a commit on the compose. And we can now close that. And it's now in our POM file. So we're going to leave this commented out, but what we're going to add back in was what we wanted to start with, was our Prometheus registry, along with Prometheus. All right. Now, the database is still up. So now if I run, it should start, connect.
Fantastic.
And you claim that we should be able to go to localhost
/metrics.
Is it metrics or
actuator?
Actuator, yeah. Actuator /
metrics should be there.
Metrics.
Yeah, right, so there's some. And then I believe try actuator / Prometheus. Yep. Let me see. Actuator info. Maybe it's just at metrics. Let me go look. I have this other example.
Does it add stuff to that?
Yep, it might just be adding it in there. But we have metrics. Look for startup.
Yeah. So it has application started time.
Yeah, do we see? So, we don't see any of the values there.
No, these are just the names. Yeah. Do we have to, I think we have to separately request the values? Is that the way it works?
Try actuator / metrics / Prometheus. I don't remember what it is. What is the endpoint? Please hold. Let me see if I can remember.
Is it? I just don't use the metric.
Yeah, I don't remember. So let me just go and stand up this other project I have sitting here. I did it. I did one for our Twitch metrics. Oh, I gotta do all my credentials again, sorry.
So metrics ingest. So that's for ingest. That's Dynatrace. That's not what I want. Prometheus. So it should be Prometheus, but I wonder if it requires something else.
It's supposed to be actuator Prometheus.
Yeah.
Okay, why didn't it work? Is it showing?
Thank you. That so maybe we have to give it the metric name. Otherwise, it just gives us the names. That's what it looks like. So this is templated.
Did we uncomment? Did we put the Prometheus registry back in?
Yes, it's back in there. But it doesn't look like it is. Maybe Maven didn't pick it up. Let me restart just to be sure. Because I added it, but I'm not sure. Sometimes Maven falls a bit behind.
Yeah, you added the property. Did you put the dependency back in?
I had the property, and I think I turned the. Yes, and here's this dependency.
Okay.
And this is the right one for what we're looking at.
Yeah.
All right. So let's run it.
I'm peeking at another project. Oh, that's got uncommitted changes. So that's always good.
So let's see. That's the database. All right, let's try it again.
Yeah, that's
now it's there.
There we go.
So I think IntelliJ was slow at recognizing that it had changed.
Okay.
So good catch.
Now,
I'm double checking that. There we go.
There we go. And now let's look for that startup.
So thank you, not Bay Joggis at all, for the recommendation. Yeah. So let's see. What are we looking for? We're looking for startup.
I think
Startup. There's StartEd.
I think there's a startup time that we get automatic.
Timeout is uptime. Connection usage time. Start. Does it start up 2 words? Start.
Taken to start the application. You just had it.
Oh.
Something, it's a time taken to start the application. Start time. Process start time. 1.7032 seconds.
Oh, process start time.
There you go. I think that's
sure. So start time of that's the start time of the process. That's when it started.
Process start time in seconds. So 2 lines down from that.
Yeah. So this is basically the documentation for this gauge. So this is confusing because this is the start time of the process since the Unix epoch. So that's just telling us when it started, not how long it took to get started.
And that doesn't make sense. That doesn't match.
Well, I'm sure it is the time since 1970, because it's E9.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's not the one we want.
Yeah, that's
start time.
That's runtime, compilation time. Time taken to start the application.
There you go.
Okay, that's the one, and I think that's the one you're actually pointing at before. 3.144.
All right, let's see if we can make that better.
So
3.144.
So that must be a templated. Is that a templated? No, it's not templated. Okay.
All right. So the way that Prometheus works, in systems past, it was like, hey, I'm gonna take these metrics and I'm gonna send telemetry. So if I'm overloaded, I'm sending traffic.
Right.
And Prometheus was like, maybe that's not the best way.
Yeah.
How about let's just capture it.
Right. Hold on to it, and then somebody can ask.
And then somebody else can go and grab it. So they put all these metrics on this endpoint, this Prometheus formatted endpoint, which that's kind of a standard way of doing it. And yeah, you can get some really interesting things here. So now we have these metrics being exposed, but it's still valuable. Like I don't have to have a time series database scraping this just yet.
Right.
It's still valuable to right here where it's at. I can go into production. I can see how long things took. If I'm comparing startup time, I can get that.
So I'm going to do a commit and say added table proposed dependency.
Yeah, SC James, I know that. Like I do that thing too. He's watching, it's bedtime, and he's putting a stream on in the background to just try to learn things passively.
Yes.
I've done that for years. So I get it. But right now it's like it's daytime for us. So like how do we make that adjustment for like who's in light, who's in dark? It's 2 different things. But yeah, I understand. I know your pain. I feel your pain.
Okay. So
now we got an endpoint.
So we got an endpoint. Committed.
Check the box.
That checks that box. Hey, we did something. Let me go check it off. Get the dopamine hit. Add metrics to startup. Completed.
Love it. the next
So
one on the list is great.
now we'll upgrade it and then
Yeah.
see if there's a difference.
Now there's two things here, right? We are going to upgrade to Spring Boot 3.2.1, but I think we're running on Java 17 still.
Yes, and then we'll want to upgrade
We want to upgrade
that as well.
And why do we want to upgrade? Because Java 21 is better.
Java 21 is so I run an ensemble, and this morning we used switch with pattern matching and pattern declaration variables, and we're about to use record patterns and sealed and permits and all that stuff together is just so nice when you need it.
How amazing, right?
Yeah.
So of course we want to be like, thank you, Java team. Let's do that. Yeah, maybe let's do that first.
Yeah, let's do that first. Sure.
And I say that because
that one's easier.
It is, yeah. But also, if you're not on Java
That'll
17,
that'll be an interesting apples to apples comparison, as it were.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, that too. But like, I've been doing this for a while, this upgrade thing for a while, and what I find is doing it one at a time. Do the Java upgrade first. You're going to get benefit from that. Even if you can't upgrade to Spring Boot, the newer version of Spring Boot, you can just upgrade your Java version and you're going to get some performance improvements.
It's supposed to do it all by itself, but I'm just going to make sure. Okay, so let's stop the application. Let me just run my quick tests.
As you should. James, I'm glad that you're here.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. We're feeling good.
All right. So
our test pass.
Yeah.
Do we want to like start it up and see?
Yeah. So now let's start it up. And let me just make sure. Go away. I have you set for too long. And database is still up. So let's go ahead and
right. It spits out a startup time there in the logs, but having on that metrics endpoint is kind of nice.
So soft flash was like 2.9.
We're already getting improvements. Like we just did, there's lots of other stuff, but like, yeah.
I mean, not the most scientific, was it a, already warmed up, whatever, and so on. But
yeah, but like, yeah, we're starting it up and hitting it. So it's nice. Like it just, we expected some there, and even if it went the other way, right, to 3.24.
Yeah.
Still, we're upgraded. We're on the latest version.
Yep.
17 is like ancient.
I know it's like you think 17 is like what, 3 years ago?
Well, with Java coming out with a new version every 6 months.
So it's
Java 21 is middle age. It just came out in September, but it's been out for over 3 months. Right. Java 22 is incubating. Java 22 is early access. Yeah. Java 22 is going to be GA in less than 2 months.
Yeah, I want to actually.
Or in less than 3 months.
3 months. Well, March something. So
it was September 18th.
Yeah, so 3 months.
Yeah. So here we are. Like Java 21 is middle age. Like if you're still using Java 17, that's ancient.
One thing I know some organizations have scheduled is sort of quarterly updates. It's like, wow, if you're doing quarterly updates, that means you're doing one update possibly halfway to the next release. So maybe you should go faster.
That is a big concern. If you're doing quarterly updates of what? Because Java doesn't come out at the same day as Spring Boot, right? Ubuntu comes out on 10 and 4, right? In October and April. Java's coming out September, March. Spring Boot's coming out November, May, right? So
it's if you're whatever's out.
Updates,
yeah,
you're missing out.
Yeah.
And I
think Java 1.5 is the equivalent of Windows 3.1, not even Windows XP.
Oh, but let me just say
1.5. Like, oh my gosh, that's forever ago.
You're not the only one. Like, I was surprised, just like you, that there are still workloads running Java 1.5 in production. I'm just as surprised as you are.
You may as
But
well be running
today,
COBOL as far as I'm concerned at that level. Yeah.
I mean, it's working, right? It's running. It didn't fall over. It didn't stop working, but
Yeah. Which
it just
is
feels
a
like
testament
risky.
to
Yeah,
yeah. Well, exactly. The risk is like, okay, we've got a really severe CV. What do we do?
yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
so let's just assume there are some percentage of orgs that are still running Java 5.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that there is a much larger percentage of orgs, whatever size org you want to pick. There's a much larger percentage of orgs that have no idea what's running in production. They don't have a app
Yeah.
inventory.
Right.
Their stuff
Right.
running all over
Until one day something
laptops.
falls
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Worst things
Generics
can
aren't
happen.
enough for me. I really like the lambdas and stuff and streams from Java 8. But now, like with, I feel like 17 adds some stuff, but if it doesn't, it feels like 21 is where I really feel the improvements. Like along the way, I've been, I for my own stuff, I generally keep up to date, but it really feels like 21 stuff has started to really come together around like pattern matching and some other things.
I'm trying to keep my stuff
Yeah.
upgraded. So I don't get into all of the Java features as much as I'd like. I'm practicing. I care about getting things to production, and right now
Yeah.
I care a lot about security. If I'm going to expose, hundreds of Raspberry Pis and stuff to the world, I'd like to
Yes.
feel a little bit protected.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to have a little bit of confidence that I'm not, betting the farm kind of thing.
Yeah.
I want to let me patch. So I'm going to try to patch things as much as I can, as often as I can, just to, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, if you're still coding like you're on Java 7, you're just missing out. And it's a shame. But you're still on a modern JVM with all the runtime. Like everybody
you're gonna
think
find value.
Yeah, I mean, folks always think about the language itself, but that runtime
Yeah.
is one of the most incredible pieces of technology, and the way you get magic benefit by just running a different JVM is just incredible.
That's it. So upgrade Java first. You
Yeah,
can still
first.
program against the Java 7
Yeah.
API, but upgrade Java first.
You can write like it was Java 1. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yes, you can.
All right. We are now on, so we can check this off. That's easy.
Yeah. And we saw some improvement. We measured it. We saw some improvement.
Yeah.
Now here we go.
And I get to use.
Did you turn this into an alias yet?
Turn what into an alias?
The upgrade.
Oh no, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I just don't do it as much as you do.
But I don't want it. I don't want it to be an alias. I want something else to take care of that automatically. I don't want to have to worry about that.
I think they should
an alias there still.
Seems like that could. If certainly you can add to IntelliJ, you can add commands that you trigger, tools that you trigger. So that might be one option.
Yeah.
It's easy enough to do.
I'll tell you. I like tools like Concourse and Cartographer that are just not triggered. I can actually like poll, and I can take events. Like if I see that Spring Boot 3.2.1 gets released, I can go and say, oh, here's a new release. Let me go make sure that all of these repositories are upgraded. Let me run that command on all the repositories that I know of. Make sure that they're still all on the latest. So slightly different than like a dependent bot.
Right.
But like, let me just go and do things.
Yeah.
Get that PR for whatever it needs.
So Sweetie asks alias for which command? Basically for this monster of a command. Now, is 3.2 inclusive of 3.2.1? It's just whatever the latest 3.2. Okay.
Yep. So this is the open rewrite, which is a framework.
Yeah, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it. There for so all the like, and you can look at the recipe list. One of the things that is really interesting about open rewrite is you have these little recipes like let's update, just the dependency part. Let's update the parent project. Let's update plugins. Let's migrate. And then those can consist of, sub recipes all the way down until you get to
Nested
individual
recipes.
things.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to do is sort of run the reverse recipe of removing the auto wired, because I know it did that as part of the upgrade we ran last time, and I actually liked the auto wired annotation on my constructors, and it removed it.
Yeah.
So there is a way to disable individual pieces of the overall recipe. I'm not going to do that, but it is possible to do that.
Yep. And you can glue recipes together and you can reorder them. It's going to add the Jax B Glassfish implementation. And yeah, that's one I always find myself deleting. But that's okay. Like the value I get out of these recipes way outweighs that extra little bit of let me go and undo these things. But the vision that I have for me and for you is I want this taken care of.
Yeah.
At a different level. I don't want to put it on the developer. I want it to be handled at a different level.
Yeah. So Git's dependabot will upgrade the dependencies, but it won't run what you really want, which is an open rewrite script. Like, because upgrading dependencies is great if the dependency is backwards, or at least is not a breaking release.
Yeah.
But what you really want is what we're doing, which is, hey, there's some slight changes. Some things got deprecated, some things got renamed, some things got removed and replaced with other things. It was much more substantial when we went from 2.7 to 3.1 with the security changes and things like that. But yeah, you want sort of a dependabot, a rewrite a bot kind of thing.
Yep. So
that would be ideal.
Well,
we should go write one.
Well, it exists.
Does it exist?
Of Open Rewrite has a company, a SaaS company.
Called Modern. Yeah.
That they have not just for like the upgrades, but also for like CVEs and patching and like, here's how this exposed. You're actually using it here. We're gonna make it so that method can't get called.
Right.
Like the log4j thing. Like, yeah. We're gonna hide that. Here's the recipe that fixes that CVE.
Right.
And they do that at scale.
Yep.
So it's there. And
there's
a lot of in between.
That's their SaaS, yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of things in between. But yeah, that's kind of the future. Is like we were talking just a minute ago about running Java 1.5. How cool would that be? That we both wrote things and took things to production in Java 1.5 or even older. Wouldn't it be cool to know that those things were being upgraded? And that would just feel cool. Like to know that all that software that I wrote in the 90s, in the aughts, or early 2000s, that all that was now just running on Java 21. Wouldn't that be something?
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't have to go back and do these migrations, not just every 6 months, but every time a new Java version came out, every time a new Spring Boot came out, every time operating system, like how many things are we going to tie ourselves to that we have to go back and be doing patches? Wouldn't it be nice, the future of software, wouldn't it be nice if we could get to production, develop our software in a way that it could take upgrades easily and just, let it run.
Yeah, they should be low ceremony. Yeah, so Demox 26, an upgrade like that from Java X to Jakarta, that's exactly what you want to use open rewrite recipes for, is because it'll do that for you. Because that is, you're not going to want to do that manually. Even though IntelliJ actually has some ways to do that transition for you automatically in your project.
Yeah,
that's one of those where it's like, I don't even want to open up the project. Like, just do it.
Yeah, like I think the one time that I was paying attention, like I opened up IntelliJ and it's like, hey, your default, you're using Java 21 and this is still Java 8. Should we upgrade these for you? Yes. Click. Okay, you're done. Java X to Jakarta is all done.
Right.
This is it.
So yeah, we're going to do it and we'll run the test button after we do this. So let's see what it does.
We're upgrading. And this has a bunch of recipes that are kind of together, make up that we know how to upgrade to Spring Boot 3.2, the latest. I ran it this morning and by running this, I have it set up as an alias. Spring Cube is what I run, and it just upgrades my project to the latest version of Spring Boot. And it was this morning that I found out that, Spring Boot 3.2.1 is out. It's been released, and
Right.
I saw that by the diff in my pom.xml.
Nice.
So it's doing its analysis. It's Java programs. The recipes are made in
Yes.
Java.
I actually, when it first came out, I actually looked at writing some. So
Yeah.
it's totally, and that's what's really nice about this. There's also another project called Error-Prone that does some similar things, but these are all like, if you have in your company your own framework, like you want to. I remember when I was working at Apple, we had our own internal frameworks, and when we'd upgrade them, sometimes it would be work on the part of our users to adopt it. And so I think we had something that was not nearly as smart as this. That was mostly text-based kind of changing stuff. So it was error prone, no pun intended. But if we'd had something like this, then this is ideal. Like you have your own internal frameworks, write a recipe that upgrades it, and then just give it to your users.
That, right? So I have one particular moment in my career where I wanted to upgrade one of those internal libraries, but I had no idea how far and wide it was being used. It was for a public partner exposed API, and I wouldn't even know where to start. But I had something that was going to save our company money and save us resources and save us time, but it required a breaking change. And I had no idea. I couldn't like say, yeah, hey, do this thing, because I was going to break people, right? And I had no idea how to get that delivered. So instead of doing it, I had to like do like a not as awesome upgrade, a not as cool way of doing it. And I had to like sit on that and that pain of knowing I could have saved a bunch of future headaches, but I had no way of delivering that easily.
Right.
And it was hard enough getting those partners to validate and consume our API. You know, as we're giving out credentials, like, oh, you had to run like a soft launch and run it against a test environment and validate. And which for you or I, it would take a 15-minute or 30-minute stream to go and talk about it. And, hey, well, I expect this to happen. And then we would read the docs, and then there'd be 5. Right? But some of these customers, it was taking like 6 months to like call our API, respond with this, respond with the 204 or 201, give us the URL that we can hit. But it was taking a long time. So I couldn't have imagined how long it would take if I didn't have something like Open Rewrite. But now, if I could say, yeah, there's a breaking change in this new version, run this command. And it'll fix all the places where you're using our library. It'll fix it to how you're using the new library the right way. That's the future of software.
And that's to me exactly what you should do. Is like to put the burden on the framework or the library. Like, what your change is. And yes, it might not be the easiest, most straightforward translation from your old API to your new API, but you're going to know it the best. And then, yes, it might be more work to handle all the situations of how people are using it so that it gets to the new API correctly. But then you save the leverage that has, over any size companies is incredible.
That's the future that I want to be a part of.
Out of memory exception.
Oh, Jonas, we can figure that out.
Yeah, I would. If not, they're really responsive to problem reports and such.
So Jonas, if you're trying to run these particular ones, this upgrade Spring Boot 3.2, I will definitely help you out. We can pair. You know how to get a hold of my calendar. And I know the folks over at Open Rewrite. We can call them and maybe we can get them on the horn and we'll work through it. So
our community.
Fear not. We will get you taken care of.
Hey, you did a tattoo. Look at them. All right. So one thing that it did, which is good, I wonder if I had accidentally deleted this before, but it basically excludes the JUnit from test containers because it still pulls in JUnit 4. Is that still necessary? I know that in the past it has been, but
I want to say it's not necessary anymore.
Let's take it out and see what happens. So let's do this.
I'm going to look at this little project here. I don't think that's necessary anymore.
And it's adding JackSpeak back.
Yeah, we definitely don't.
So one thing I definitely want to do is create a way to run the commands minus a couple of recipes that I know I don't need. So other than that was just a version number upgrade. Let's see, what did it do to my property files? Hey, it turned on virtual threads.
As it should.
I was waiting for that.
As it should.
So let's see it. So put it in application properties, and it added to my test app. Wait a second. Oh, it added to my test application properties. Okay, I'll accept
Mhm.
that. That's cool. So let me do something. So let me force Maven to refresh just to be sure. And what I want to do is I want to see if that test containers thing is needed. So let me go.
So I'm looking at another project and I don't have that exclusion. And my thing is
So
just working
where
just
it
fine.
comes, where it used to come up is, let's say I wanted to write a test for this. So if I created a test method, yeah. So this is what it is. So it doesn't know, do I want a JUnit 4 or JUnit 5 test, because they're both in the class path, and the JUnit 4 is being picked up, I think, still by test containers.
Got it.
So
Okay.
we can verify that by going to our POM and where is test containers? And so we can back, but let's remove. Refresh since it seems to be slow.
There you go.
And let's go back to our tests. So now if we do an insert test, now it knows it's JUnit 5.
There you go. That makes sense.
So that's still needed.
Yep.
I think I've been tracking. There is an issue filed against that. I'm sure it's something not straightforward. All right, so let me go ahead and get rid of this. Hey, Tukes, welcome.
Hello, Tukes.
Interesting.
Undo.
I wonder. So with the exclusion, well, let's make sure that I haven't broken things by excluding it.
Let's see.
let's run our tests. I am using test containers sort of in its older style. Did I run it? I didn't run it.
Well, let's see. Well, let's take a look, because I'm going to use the Spring Boot parent POM to give me my test container versions.
Okay, so it looks like doing it this way is requiring the JUnit 4 to be on the class path.
Okay.
I have a feeling if we converted this to the new style, because this is the old style of setting up test containers, that we wouldn't need that. So thanks for mentioning that Suiji, because we would have noticed that. So let's go and actually take out that exclusion.
So this is putting JUnit 4 back on the class path.
Yeah, so let's
So
just
we'll have both, which is okay. It's not hurt anything. It's going to affect us when we're editing and adding tests. But this is going to work, we expect.
Yeah, once IntelliJ decides it's ready to sync. There we go. Yep, that did it.
Okay.
So
that's why I didn't
then what I want to do is then, because I've got, oops, not that. I've got here somewhere, yeah, update test container usage. So I'm going to add, and then exclude JUnit.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're at now.
All right. Otherwise, all the tests pass.
Yep. Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Now,
so tested one thing. Let's run the app.
there's an issue. Open since 2018, generic container run from Jupyter tests shouldn't require JUnit 4 library on the runtime class.
Yep.
That issue is still open.
Yeah.
And I know that I've read the answer, or I know that I've gotten to the answer.
So let's refresh. And now our application start time is just about the same, 2.939.
Okay. We'll take it.
Actually, technically it's 30 some odd milliseconds faster, but we'll call that. Certainly not slower.
There you go.
So there we go.
2.939. There you said 2.939.
2939. Yeah.
Okay. We'll take it. So now we're there.
So yeah,
It looks like the JUnit 4 is still a requirement to run those test containers. I could.
well, we're going to commit since it looks good.
I mean, as we should. I mean, we've just been making progress. We're checking all sorts of boxes here. Look at that Trello board. We are flying.
Let's go and
Look at
put
this.
that in done. So due to attitude, upgrading versions to me is so confusing to not cause any breaking changes. Well, this is where having good tests really helps.
Absolutely.
But also, of course, like we've been looking at, good tools. I don't know if are there such tools. It wouldn't surprise me that in the .NET world.
Like if you want to buy some tests, you want to buy some tools to make you a little bit more confident. Somebody's selling that somewhere. Somebody's selling that somewhere.
So Tramstar's Railway does support Java 21. Last I checked, because they're using the Heroku build packs. No, they're using the Nix packs. Actually, now I'm not sure if Railway uses 21. I'm pretty sure they do. Koyeb just last week, or actually may have been even this week, finally upgraded so that you can deploy Java 21 to their platform. So I know they work.
And you always have an option of running a native image. Build a native image.
Yes. Build a native image.
Gets rid of the JVM and gives you a native image that you can run just about anywhere.
Yep.
Maybe we'll get into that. I want to find out which build packs that Railway is using.
Yeah, so they used to use build packs, but some time ago they switched to Nix packs. Oh, it could be that they don't support it yet. And so it's really interesting. It's like, platform as a service is great in terms of doing a lot of work for you. Relying, though, on their build system to build your artifact means you can simplify your end of things a little bit. But you do run the risk that they're behind. Like, Java 21 was released in September.
Yes. And
it wasn't until early December that Koyeb supported it. And so you have to decide, do you like waiting, or do you like having things under your control?
How much money is that? Now, I know a little bit of insights around some flavors of the build packs and what was happening. There were some upstream. Other changes were in place. They had to make some other changes that were kind of like, hey, other contracts that they had to do in order to move forward. And those took a lot of energy. But my understanding for the build pack ecosystem is when Java 22 comes out, it's going to be
should be straightforward,
adopted faster. Days, not weeks. For those build packs to be caught up.
But it's funny. It's like even days. It's like I don't want to wait days.
I mean, who does?
Yeah,
who does?
Because what was it? Like even Gradle. Like if you're using Gradle and you're using Kotlin in your Gradle, you had to wait. There were some workarounds that they finally had, but it's like I want it now.
I get it. We get so impatient.
Yeah. So pass versus SaaS, I think, is the wrong comparison. You probably mean pass versus what they sometimes call IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. So AWS and those are providing you in the infrastructure, but you're on your own for cobbling all that stuff together. But it's likely going to be cheaper if you know how to use it correctly, because You
Right.
can optimize things, but there's a cost.
Cheaper some ways, like
There's
because that
there's
whole
cheaper
10%, 90%
operating.
thing,
Yes,
right?
there's
Like
the operational costs, but then there's the costs of what
the
you know
maintenance and
maintenance.
the documents and all the
So for me, it's mistakes. I am terrified of making a mistake and getting a $5,000 monthly bill, or just making a mistake with security because I didn't
yeah.
do something right and I didn't hook up private networks correctly and expose something. And if you have people who are dedicated to doing that because your organization is large enough,
Mhm.
and you run all the numbers, it might make a lot of sense. But I'd much rather, especially for smaller apps, or even if I was running a company, it's like, let's start with a pass, see how far we can go.
Yep.
When we start needing things and we start looking at our costs and it starts getting a bit expensive, because passes can be a bit pricey.
They can be a bit pricey.
But the newer ones like Railway and Koya, their pricing models are really nice, much better than Heroku's. So
yeah,
run the
there's lots of
numbers
options.
and make sure you include developers in those numbers because they cost money
Yeah.
too.
And one of the things I like saying is I don't have cloud money. I've got Raspberry Pi money. So I'm trying
Right.
to do these things on Raspberry Pis. There's a lot of open source. A lot of the PaaS, offerings are built on top of open source projects,
Yep.
right? And I've got more time than I've got money. so I'm gonna go ahead and
I,
spend some time on these
yeah.
things, and I'm gonna learn along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lean into this platform approach. I've got a bunch of these different domains.
Yeah.
I'm a domain hoarder.
Oh,
But I've got
let's not go there.
Spring Boot apps running all over the place. But if I'm doing it as a platform, build packs are a big part of what I do. If I'm doing it as a platform, I can run all, update all, and I can get everything up to date. Or if I'm really smart, I can keep track of what's been deployed with which version. Like, hey, keep a metadata repository of what's been deployed with Java 21 so that when Java 22 comes out and it's available, I can fire off that event that says go upgrade everything to Java 22.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess I don't want to deal with that.
I don't want
So
to do that
great
either.
that you're playing around with it, but like I'm bottle recycling money. It's like I've got $5 I can spend a month, so I'm fine spending $5 a month on my apps.
There you go.
And Koyev is even cheaper with the way they're structured. So
Hold on one sec.
yep. Yeah, so it's funny. It's like, we always talk about scaling and things like that, and like especially for our personal stuff, like you don't necessarily need that kind of scaling. Maybe you're lucky or unlucky and you get Hacker News attacked, DDoS, but yeah.
How many requests per second can you handle Raspberry Pi? I know it depends, but some estimate. Like, yeah, it depends on what I'm doing. The fun thing is with the Raspberry Pi and with the native images that I'm deploying, and I use Knative serving to auto scale. So I can move my resources around. So if I get a thundering herd on my Hello World app, I can scale up that Hello World app on these different devices. And then the Hello World app is doing its thing and it's processing. And now it's going to move some things over. It's going to do some batch processing. The Hello World gets to scale down and the batch workers get to scale up. So yeah, I've got a lot of Raspberry Pis. So
Yes.
my like total throughput requests per second. Yeah, I couldn't even give a ballpark. But on my yeah, when I do on my laptop, um, I think I could run that test. That's a good thing. I'm gonna take a note to do that. Like how many requests per second can I handle on Knative, deploying these native images for just like a Gatling is what I'm going to use. Like I've been using JMeter for such a long time, but now all the cool kids are using Gatling, so I'm going to move over to
really?
Gatling.
Okay. All right. But yeah, so for me, what I'm more interested in is latency rather than sort of
Latency is the new downtime.
like I don't care how many per second. I want my one request to come back really fast because the number of users like of my ensemble is maybe 15. But like I don't want to have to wait another half second for the page. So.
Exactly. Maybe on the first one.
Can really handle native images. Yes, because it can deploy, and all these ones, as far as I know, they're going to let you deploy Docker. In fact, ones like fly.io don't even mention Java. So it's like, here, I'll share this. Like, we don't even rate an entry on here. Java's not here. But Docker is, so it's fine.
All right, so we know what to do.
Which means, you know, so unlike Railway, which has first class support for go ahead and run Maven and build an artifact and then run it, perfect for a Spring Boot. Ones like Fly.io, if you want to try them out, you're going to use Docker, but then why not use a native image and there. Oh, I was going to show Ensembler. So let me show Ensembler. So hold on. Let me make sure I'm not going to show anything sensitive.
I know Pink Emma. She's been on my streams, and every once in a while I'll show a secret or two, and she's like, "Free tokens, get them while they're hot."
There's I don't have it active anymore because I haven't been doing much stuff with that use secrets. But there is a tool that for some UIs that don't hide the API keys and things like that, the extension will actually hide it for you when you turn it on.
That's really cool.
So yeah, so I'll show this. So this is the UI is threadbare, basic minimum, does just what I need it to do. So with this tool, it's basically about managing events. You can sort of think about it that way. But it has some built-in things like shows me how many participants, if anybody declined. So they'd signed up and it's like, no, I can't make it. It shows me that. I can click into here, but it's going to show some details that I'd rather not show. And then all the way at the bottom, it shows all the ensembles through time. You can create a new one. And so what this is sort of the key part is you just give it a date and time. It will go out to Zoom using the Zoom API, go and create a meeting at the right length with the right parameters, with all the right stuff. And then that's it. And then when it's over, I can upload a recording, and it provides that link to those who have signed up. So let me see. Yeah, I'll show that other thing later. Actually, let me try something. Switch to member. Yeah, okay, showing that. So this is the member view. So if you are able to, if you paid me money in certain ways, you can join these ensembles. And so what we see here is the date and time, and then the participants. Right now, this one these happened in the past, even though it says upcoming. I got to fix that. And then I had this feature that I recently added called spectators, because I was getting so many people who was like, I want to join, but I don't really want to join. I just want to watch and see what it's like. So I have a special thing for that. And you can sort of flip back and forth if you have. Right now, there's one level of permission. Next week, I'm going to be streaming about enhancing the spectator capability, because some of the things that I wanted to be able to do, you can't. And anyway, so there's a bunch of features I want to add around that. But yeah, and it's uses a tiny little Postgres database, not very large, but still Postgres. Works really well. And so after the recording link, you'll see this. When one is coming up, you'll see the invite. Yeah, so it's I talk a lot about, like, you want to learn, build an app that you actually could use.
Yep.
Because you're going to find things
space that you understand.
Yeah, and that helps you, and that you'll be motivated to use it, and you'll be able to provide, if nothing else, your own feedback.
Perfect.
Close that. And I finally added a favicon.
Yes.
Which was like, why? I thought I added one some time back, and I don't know, it must have disappeared, or I never did it. And so
little things like that,
yeah, because otherwise it has the ugly default icon.
Yep.
It's like, ugh. So that's fixed up.
Let's keep going.
All right. So I see who James asked about. Yeah, I don't know much about serverless. I will admit my ignorance to serverless. I don't know what the
Serverless. When I
support for
hear
that stuff
serverless, all
is.
I think of is scale up from 0, scale down to 0. Scale up fast, scale down all the way to 0. That's what I think of serverless.
Yeah, I guess I think of serverless as more like serverless functions, but maybe that's a
Similar, right?
misconception.
Similar
Because
thing,
like I
right?
think about like, because when I first started playing with like serverless stuff, it was basically here, write 10 lines of code in this, AWS UI and push a button, and now it's available. You don't have to do
Yes.
anything with containers or anything like that. So
Yep.
to me, it's I guess serverless for me translates to sort of containerless. Like I just want to write a little function. But yes, you want
Yep.
to have the ability to scale up and scale down to 0 quickly is certainly valuable.
And the technology has come so far that you can, right? Because part of that scale up part is you don't want it to take 5 seconds or 30 seconds to
Right.
come
Yes.
up.
Right.
So part of that corner of the technology is it's gotten so fast and so advanced that you can have a Spring MVC web app tied to Redis and Postgres scale up in 0.4 seconds,
Right. Right.
right? So there's different options for that.
Yeah.
AWS Lambda is one. But James, you've heard me say before, get your MVP to work on your laptop first. And to do
Yes.
that on your laptop, you use, I don't want a monthly bill either, right?
Yeah.
So I use Knative Serving.
Yeah.
So
And
I
I
can,
use Koyab, and you can get a 512 megabyte thing, which is more than enough,
yeah.
especially if you're running native to do anything you likely do. Maybe not everything, but certainly enough. In dark mode for Ensembler. Yeah, I should probably have at some point when I upgrade the UI. Dark mode, man.
From the beginning of the stream.
I want to I want to, one of the things for 2024 is I want to hire a UI designer to improve the UI, because like I could do it, but God, it's so painful.
Can I tell you a secret?
Go ahead.
You want to know who my UI designer is?
Who?
Vaden. Have you played with Vaden?
I have a philosophical problem with that.
Tell me. I want to hear. I value your opinion.
Mainly it's I've been burned before by trying to do everything in Java.
Okay.
And I like so way back in when I was working for a company called Guidewire, we were internally evaluating what our next step was in terms of front end. And we were looking at GWT, and we loved the fact that, hey, we could write our front end in GWT. We did so I ran a it was me and somebody else. We were, I think it was somebody else, might have even been just me, I forget. But we were sort of doing, feasibility. So we were looking at, is this even gonna work? And to create stuff was great, but then when we wanted to interact with other JavaScript, it was so painful. So crossing that bridge, basically, from Java calling JavaScript and JavaScript calling Java, I basically said, no, this is not gonna work. Let's just learn JavaScript, use JavaScript on the front end, do it with JavaScript and HTML. And so that's I think there's, if you're working inside a company and you need to get tools deployed, Vaden is great. Love it. Love the idea of that. But for me, I like a little bit more control.
So I come from, I don't even build front ends. I'm building the enterprise grade hello world .json, right? Like everything is kind of Spring Boot centric. So really the UI that I've made is what you just showed is like 1,000,000 times better than anything I've ever developed. until I use Vaadin. Like, so
Yeah.
I like, if I want to make something pretty and presentable and be like, hey, I'm full stack, right? That's where I go because it takes me zero time. But I don't put any effort into thinking about the front ends. My mind is definitely thinking about how the back end systems are going to talk to each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, and honestly, I haven't played with Vaadin in a while, so I don't know what its performance is like. But I'm very much of in the camp of I want the browser to do its job, which is render HTML,
Mhm.
and I want the backend to do its job, which is generate HTML. And anything I need to bridge the two to make the UI a bit more interactive
Yep.
without having to hit the server, I'm going to start with something like HTMX,
There you go.
and a little bit of JavaScript.
You just reminded me of
Because
something.
the thing I don't know about it, and I'd be really curious, and I'd have to spend some time with Vaadin, is what is the test? What does it look like to test?
Yep.
Like I can write tests against my backend that's generating HTML, and I can,
Yeah.
if I wanted to, I could run HTML unit to see that it generates the right stuff,
Yep.
and related. So I don't know what the testing,
Yep.
what that looks like for Vaadin. So that
So
would be interesting.
this is what I want to do with you. So sometime after the new year, I want to go down this path. I got a project in my head that uses Vaadin that I want to do, and it's something I think you'll enjoy too. And I want to do it, and I just want to start it with Vaadin, and then we can talk about all those things from the start because there's some really cool interactive things. Dan Vega and I did a workshop over the last couple of years. We were doing these workshops, and I did the front end. I built this Vaadin front end. Vaadin gives you kind of a back end CRUD interface
Right.
out of the gate, but I ripped that out. We have these new declarative HTTP clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I rip out the CRUD, I plug in this declarative HTTP client that's just consuming the CRUD REST API that we generate in the workshop.
Right.
So you get this like nice cool thing, but it also has this cool like one of the default UIs is like this chat interface, like hello, and you type in your response, and you get
Right.
a little chat window
Right.
that says, oh, that worked, or like just a little feedback window.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all in Java, right? You and I
Right.
right now are both kind of we're at the helm, we're doing all the things. So when I can, first of all, they have like an interface that I can go and plug and drop in different templates, and I can drop in different components. They got a beautiful component library, but there's also an ecosystem of components
Right.
around Vaadin and just
Right.
make it really easy to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I have a project in my head. I would love that, like, hey, we're starting from scratch because where I kind of run into problems is like, what's the first test that I'm supposed to write?
Right.
Is it that the context loads? Is that supposed to be the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, now which one?
Right. Which
What's
one
the,
after that?
what's the one right after that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be fun for me. So I'm making a note here after the new year. I want to sit down and just start. Like, let's get a hello world, click app, and let's
Yeah.
write a test
Yeah.
around Vaadin.
Yeah. I'd love to have an excuse to try it out more, because I feel like my opinions are about 4 years out of date. So so I asked, is it possible to do front end without JavaScript? But presumably, what you mean is with just HTML and CSS. And yes, I mean the Ensemble UI, like the look of it, I'm okay with. And this is where it's like it's a bit more like UI is so many things, and so it's almost a bit more UX. Like what do you want to see? What's useful information? How do you want to sort of architect how things look? And that's where I'll want someone to help me with that, because I use Tailwind. I know enough to get by. It may not be the most aesthetically pleasing thing, but it's more, how do I want to structure this information? So that UI, the only JavaScript that's there is to translate the date and times to what the browser says your local time zone is. Because I feed coming out from the API, it's not even an API. What I feed into the HTML is in UTC, because what you want is the browser to do the translation. Theoretically, I could have the server do it, but having the browser do it was a little bit easier. I'll probably migrate to the other one. Although if you run the performance, you can actually see that JavaScript execute, and so I'm trying to beef up the page load time, because that matters again for like this app's like I need come on, let's move it. You're not doing that much. So and HTMX would make that even better because then it doesn't have to reload the whole page.
Yeah. So I come from a time, I know I'm dating myself, but there was a time where JavaScript was a little, it would work in one browser, it wouldn't work in another. And we were battling like, oh, well, which
Yeah.
browser do we support? Like,
Yes.
we're going to support this one. Just get it to work on this one because we didn't have a team that could do all the different browsers that were
Yeah.
changing all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the dark days were definitely dark,
long ago.
and I was there during those dark days, and it took me. I might still not be over that trauma,
Little
you know,
tick.
where it's now okay to do to do JavaScript, and I need to sort of beef some of that up because one of the apps I want to get back to for next year is turn my my TDD game. My TDD game
Yeah.
into an online version.
Yes.
So I've got the back end for that. And I've got the front end in Vue, and I want to see what I want to do it in HTMX and maybe even use Vue components.
That'd be wonderful.
So that's what I'm going to do there. So that'll be a modernization project as well, because that one is also old. It's actually 2 or 3 years old now. So,
Yeah. But you can do web apps without any JavaScript whatsoever.
and
do it all in the back end.
And it's funny. I was
done
talking to someone, and they wanted me to do a boot camp where start out with for mainly non-coders to get them up to speed. So you start out with your JavaScript, HTML, and then do Spring Boot, and then they wanted React, and I said, I'm fine with those first 2 modules. I am not with you on that last one. I don't know enough to be able to teach it, and B, I don't want to know enough to teach it because I think it's way overused.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. TDD game online with HTMX. I think it's totally. There's no reason why I can't do that. There's not so much state and complexity on the front end that it needs to be a full single page application. So.
I moved my mic. My mic used to be up here, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're quiet because it's got a weird thing." And then I moved it, and now I have my headphones turned up, so I have them on her, and I can hear my stomach. It's down below, and I can hear my stomach in my headphones. And I'm like, I hope that everybody's not hearing that because my stomach has just been growling the whole time. So I'm like wondering, is it worth having the mic down here so that everybody can hear my stomach?
Well, you sound good, and I haven't heard any rumbling. So,
wonderful.
So you're all good. Works best with IE4. Yes, the good old days of works best with IE.
Pixie Report just aged herself for themselves a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a bunch of monitors. I don't know if TC39 is the standards committee for Java. Well, technically ECMAScript. And I know there's some new date stuff. I don't know if it's out or I haven't followed in a while. But yeah, it'd be nice if I could say, without having to write any JavaScript, here's the date, and maybe this is already possible. I don't know. I haven't looked at that stuff in probably since I wrote this for Ensembler, which is now almost 2 years ago. So maybe that's changed. I should look into that. But yeah, it'd be nice if I could say, here's the UTC, do whatever you need to do. You're the browser, this stuff, do it yourself.
Like time zones, dates, all of this stuff is super duper difficult.
Yeah.
And one of the things, having been in this world of updating and having servers and having Raspberry Pis and doing things like sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade for a long time, if you had ran Linux, you remember this package called TZ data.
Mm-hmm.
TZ data is time zone data. And how come it's being upgraded? Like, what could possibly be upgraded every other day for the entire year? Like, how many countries are being brought and switching time zones? Like, what kind of funny math are they doing that I'm getting a new time zone data package like weekly? What is even happening?
Yeah.
But I say TZ data, everybody knows, hey, I'm going to check it out. Oh, TZ data. Like, it's just,
Yeah, and for those of you who look closely at your Java release notes, you see we're updating TZ data to whatever. We're updating TZ data to whatever. It's like, oh, we've got a patch release. We're updating TZ data. It's like the main reason we're releasing it. Yeah.
Crazy.
What should we do next?
What's next on the list?
Well, test container usage is next, but I kind of feel like native image should be
Okay, let's go
next,
there. Let's do that.
because I have no idea what I'm doing with this. So
So let's talk about the native image stuff. So we've kind of mentioned it a little bit. One of the things that came along with Spring Framework 6 and Spring Boot 3, we had to rebase to Java 17. Why? Mainly, we wanted to be able to use some of the newer features that were available. And what the Spring team was trying to do is support more advanced, modern usages
Mhm.
with Java. So they said, hey, you've got to get up to Java 17, but promise you it's worth it because you're going to get to all these cool things. And one of the cool thing that I care about the most was these AOT native images. So what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves this ability. We're going to say, hey, GraalVM, go and look at this bytecode and optimize it. And if I'm not able to reach part of that code, just throw it away. If I pull in a dependency for JUnit 4, but I'm not using JUnit 4, just throw it away, right? Because that dependency is coming in as a test scope, and it's not going to be in the native image. It's not going to be there.
Right.
So it takes a little bit of time. The GraalVM piece is analyzing that bytecode, and it takes a little bit of time. So even on a fast computer, it's going to take a minute or so.
Right.
But at the end, it's going to give you this mostly statically linked native binary. It depends on if you're using Muscle or not, but statically linked native binary. So if we're on Mac, it'll be for Darwin. If you're on M2, it'll be for ARM64. The trade-off, there's a couple of them. There's the compile time,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's the fact that output can't be used across all of the other places where you're in Java. Bytecode
Right.
was write once, run anywhere
Right.
that you had a JVM.
Right.
Any operating system, anywhere, bytecode, JVM, you're good. And because Java does that backward compatible thing, like this was amazing. And maybe that has something to do with the longevity of Java. But now we want to do more with less. We only have a 512 megabyte free tier. We want to be able to get more than one app, or at least one app on that
Right.
512
Right.
megabytes.
Right.
So GraalVM to the rescue. Spring team making it easy to the rescue. But we get it out of the box. We don't have to do a whole lot. We have to add our GraalVM dependency, so we can get the GraalVM metadata,
Mm-hmm.
so that if there is a project that we're using that might have reflection or proxy usage, we can tell GraalVM, we say, hey, like this class right here in this library actually uses reflection, and I
Mm-hmm.
want you to be aware that here's where it's used. So make sure you do the extra work. But I'm letting you know now because you might not see that at compile time.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that
Especially
metadata,
reflection, that kind of stuff, you will
yep.
not see at compile time. Yeah.
So the metadata repository exposes that to the GraalVM, so the GraalVM can make sure that it takes that into account when it's building that native image, because you don't have those abilities. We're doing all of this ahead of time compilation at compile time. We're doing all that analysis. We can't
Right.
do the other trade-off. Another trade-off is dynamic property changing, dynamic
Right.
class path changing. We don't have that.
Right. Right. Because
Which,
there is no such thing.
right, and there's, some people look at it as that's actually more secure, right? If
Yeah.
you were the Log4j thing,
Right.
not too long ago, if that was a native image, you didn't care,
Right.
right? That wasn't exposed because it was throwing away that code that you weren't using, unless
Right.
you were making that a part of your test, and then
Right.
shame on you anyways. But here we are.
Yeah.
We can basically add this one step. In the parent POM of Spring Boot, you have a native profile,
Mm-hmm.
and it knows what to do from there.
All right.
So all we have to do is add that GraalVM dependency. And the way I cheat, I go to start.spring.io, and in a generic project, I click Maven, I go to the add dependencies, and I just hit GraalVM native support. Yep. And I click Maven on the top left,
I can just.
so you can copy paste.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't click Maven.
Yep. Click
Join
Maven.
default.
There you go. And then explore.
And now I can explore. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I copy and paste that dependency.
So it's this one?
Yep.
Is it just a plugin?
Just that.
All right.
Yep. Just that. And that's gonna access all of the metadata repository and give us all the things that we need in order to do this native image build. So now, because we're using Spring Boot 3.2, we've already done the upgrade. We already seen all the performance route. We can go even further by doing a native image. So instead of doing Spring Boot run or Spring Boot run, we can now do.
There it is.
Yeah, we can run a native build. So I'm not sure how to do it. We're just turning on the native profile and doing a Spring Boot build image.
So should I run that?
I don't have to build an image. I can build the native output without putting it in an OCI container. So from the terminal, I'd be doing Spring MVNW -P, capital P, native.
Oh, because that's the profile. Okay.
Yeah, that's the profile. And then native : compile. There we go. So now we've said, hey, we want to do this native compile. So now, we have to have a GraalVM JVM. So it will have to do that. Yeah. I don't think it'll be able to do that. Or it doesn't have to be GraalVM. You can also use the Liberica NIC version.
I'll just grab.
So yeah, we have options there.
So let's grab.
Yep, GraalVM CE 21.0.1 -Graal CE. Yes. So the Graal CE, the Graal JVM, it's a JVM built with Java. So it's OpenJDK, it's
Okay.
doing all the other things, but it's built with Java. But then on top of that, it has this ability to go in and scan and do all the analysis on your Java, but also on other languages. But they built it with Java. This is coming out of Oracle Labs and their work. They had this project
For a while.
It's been out for a while. But early on, I watched a video of one of their brilliant engineers on the JVM. They had this like substrate project, like, this is the minimum part of the JVM that you would need, and you were able to like build it just against, use just some part of the Java libraries against this substrate. But I remember watching that video. I found it on YouTube when I was like, that definitely led into this GraalVM. Because what GraalVM is doing after it does all of its analysis, it grabs the bits, it grabs that substrate of the JVM, because it needs a little bit of garbage collection. It needs a little bit of the thread management, but it handles all that. Now, the cool thing with Spring Boot, it's also doing that analysis on the Spring Boot jar. So it's analyzing, the Tomcat jar. It's analyzing all of Tomcat and doing all the Tomcat down, and it's putting all of that. So you have your app, your bits of Tomcat, and the little bit of the JVM that you need, and it's all squished down in this tiny little statically linked binary. It has all the things, including the garbage collection, including the virtual thread support. It's going to have its own virtual threads.
Boy, look at my CPU. It's pinning my CPUs.
Oh, this part, it's using it all. Yes.
Yep.
When I first was doing this, my stream would blur out and be like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, we're doing too much stuff. Glitch." So yeah, just that, like that little feedback thing of I can stream and I can do a native compile today. That's how far like we're doing this in just 2 years. I've only been in this role for 2 years and 2 days. And
happy anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. And we've come a long way, and it's great.
Yeah, I can tell my video is jerky.
Oh, it is?
So my webcam video is a little jerky. So that's unsurprising. While we're waiting for that, Trampstars had a DDD question. So I want to return a list of country code to the UI, but in our domain, it's a value object. Is it fine to return a list of VO to front end? Has to be in another context aggregate root. So the key thing that I have had reinforced for me lately in the DDD realm is that aggregates are only needed if you're doing changes to state, if you're changing stuff. If you're reading, you don't need an aggregate. And in fact, the aggregate can be annoying. So for something that is like country codes, if you just want to display all the country codes, it doesn't belong really to an aggregate. It is separate. It is basically, hey, here's a table in my database of all country codes. And so you may not even need to pull those into value objects, because value objects will be where you're going to use it in the domain. I might pull it directly from a repository and maybe even turn it to strings, especially if there's no ideas. I would assume, though, there's probably going to be some key, because it depends on how you're localizing things. But if I were to do it, I'd probably use the ISO 2-character or perhaps 3-character country code as the key that comes back sent by the API, to associate that with the actual country code, because I might actually localize the country codes, the actually country displays. But if it's just the country codes that you're displaying to the UI, just return those directly from the database. Almost. I mean, you may do some mapping in between, but that's something that's been really, really sort of refined in my head and clarified. Is in domain-driven design, there are these things that are aggregates, but it's all about protecting from and making, when you do changes, making that consistently. You don't have to go to CQRS and separate your read and write things, but in a sense, you are already. So hopefully that answers your question, Tramstars. And hey, Graal is done.
All right, fantastic.
Seems to be done.
So now in your target directory, you should have a probably called ensembler, /target/ensembler, and that's an executable.
There it is.
Yep. So now, fun is let's run it.
All right.
The properties that we gave it at compile time are the properties that it's going to have. Right? It's going to take in those properties. So let's see if it starts. Okay.
Aww.
MVC handler mapping introspector request transformer. Okay, I've not run into this before.
MVC handler mapping introspector request.
Well, I got a little clue down there. I might just try to do that first.
Presumably that would mean, so if we change the setting to that, do we have to regenerate the, okay.
Yes.
That's a bummer. So let's put that in, I guess, in our, let's close this here. Application properties. Throw that in here.
Now, fun little trivia thing is I'm a big fan of ARM64. Raspberry Pi, Apple Silicon. I have an Ampere machine. When I was waiting for that Ampere machine to come from China, I was really excited because it had 96 cores. And I was convinced that my native image builds were going to be blazing fast. But alas, they were not. The Windows machine that I have in the closet there, the little gaming computer that I bought a year ago, is still the fastest native compile that I have. And our friend Josh Long has the new latest and greatest M3 laptop with all the bells and whistles. And that Windows machine is still faster. They're not doing the same for same, right? The Windows machine is doing x86. That was doing ARM64. So it's not same, but like when I'm doing demos, if I'm trying to show stuff off, I like doing demos with the Windows machine because the native builds are 30 seconds.
It's much faster.
30 seconds, right?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Yes, you can.
Great.
Fantastic.
That's a good question. We'll look at the size once it regenerates it.
Yeah. So here's the cool thing: is the size of that executable. Remember, it's including the app, and Tomcat, and the JVM. All of that is in that executable. When you're delivering the container, the size of the image. So there's two things here. There's the size of the image,
Hmm.
right? That executable, you're probably not passing around that binary executable a lot of places unless it's a CLI, but even then it's still tiny
Yeah.
because what we were doing in the past, like Spring Shell, the CLI, you're running Java and you're loading the runtime to do that.
Hmm.
Well, now that's another place where I find a ton of value in these native images. So now I have the Spring Shell project. I can
Hmm.
compile those cool little shell tools
Right.
into native, and I'm doing it with Java, and it's
Hmm.
awesome. But I'm
Yeah.
delivering these native,
Right. You don't need
binaries.
to go to start using Golang to create nice little command line utilities.
Yeah, like so. I don't have all the information, but I believe it when I hear others say like, right now is kind of the Java 21 with Spring 6 and Spring 3, the most important release ever is Java 21 of Java. This is the biggest milestone that we've ever had. And again, language things aside, right? Everybody kind of, especially for those of us that have come along the journey, the big thing is I've been around long enough to hear a bunch of the language wars. And oh no, you got to use Golang, or no, you got to use
Right.
Node, or
Right.
no, of course you're doing AI, you got to use Python. Like
Right. Right.
where there's like these default, if you're doing this, then you must be using this language. But now we're in the spot where there's been so much effort and emphasis and work put
Yeah.
into our ecosystem that personally, I don't have to switch languages
Yeah.
for anything. Like
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah.
I did you know, I was really proud in like 2021, my first few weeks on a new job, I was delivering open source PRs in a bunch of languages, in
Hmm.
C sharp, in Go, in Ruby, in Python, in Java. I was fine with it. It took me a lot of time, but I could
Right.
figure it out enough to get
Yeah.
a PR, get something fixed to work. And I was delivering these. I was doing a lot of it on stream actually, and
Nice.
but I was fine with it. I was having fun. But now with the Raspberry Pis, a lot of those fun little starter projects were all done in Python.
Right.
And now all of those little fun little projects, I was like, I'm not doing Python, not in this home lab, not for me, not for what I'm doing. So I'm converting all of these other one-off projects in these one-off languages and frameworks. I'm just bringing it all back to Spring and Java, and I can deliver as native images, and I can do
Yep.
everything I want with these devices, and I can stay in my same language, my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm still
Yeah.
getting outside of my comfort zone because I'm having to do things and analyze these other
Right.
languages and put
Right.
in, but I'm also having fun using ChatGPT to tell me what is this thing doing. And then I just turn around and I write it in Spring.
Yeah.
Don't tell them to
I
come
have this.
back.
Yeah. It's not a comeback. It's people recognizing that. But yeah, uh, I've been using Java for since pre 1.0, and so I've been quite relieved that it's been going so well, especially over the past couple of years, and with Java 21 and all the thoughtful additions to the language, and now the the JVM itself, and now with the Growl native image support. Yeah, I can stop having to say, oh, maybe I should write this, is because I can write and Go if I need to, but I'd rather not.
So you're looking at the size of the image, the 123 megs. That
Yeah, so
includes Java.
so the jar itself was 59, and
Yep.
so it's not surprising that this is going to be, but not terribly, like it's not like it's gigabytes.
Now, if you built the containers,
Right.
with the JVM, you would deliver that jar would be one layer. So that 59 megs, you'd
Right.
have your operating system, but it'd be the same operating system. Let's just say Alpine.
Right.
You would either have the jar and the Java layer
Right.
with your operating system, or
Right.
you have the ensembler and the operating system.
Right.
So when you look at that 123 megs versus 59 megs, there's a whole nother layer that's
Yeah.
the Java
Yeah. Right. With the
JVM layer,
59 megs, you've
and
got
it's
quite
a
a.
lot bigger than
It's a
59
lot
megs.
bigger than yeah. It's a
Yep.
lot bigger than the additional 70 megs or so. Yeah.
Yep.
All
And
right. Let's
that
see.
goes into account.
Oh.
Like when we take that out and we pass that around our friends, those native images, at least for developers, in my head, your development team is all using native images on their laptop and it's scaling to 0 because they don't need it running 24/7. Yeah, I'm deploying to Raspberry Pis and the native images are great there. But yeah, there's some places where the JVM is better. But I think for development, typically those native images are kind of the default, and that's the better way to go.
Okay. So
Okay.
this is not surprising because that key is only supplied when I run locally, when I run with DevTools, because it picks it up from the config directory all the way up in my base. So I could probably
dir.envrc is what I have defaulted to, so I get those in my shell, and I can just pass those in.
Yeah, so that's something I if I'm going to do native images, I don't think I'm going to push. I'm going to have to figure out a better way to do those environment variables that are sensitive. So you'll have to come back and show me how you do that.
Yeah, and I've been showing that off. Where in our, you're familiar with dir direnv that uses the .envrc files. Basically, when I switch between
I've seen it,
projects,
but I'm not familiar enough with it to.
When I switch between different projects, different directories, I've got a .envrc file, and that .envrc file just says, "Hey, here's the environment variables that you need," but I don't want passwords and secrets sitting on my disk. Right. So the pattern that I've been sharing that I do is in that .envrc file, I say, "Hey, log into my secret store," whether it's 1Password or I use Bitwarden. I say, make sure you're logged in to there. And then for this application, go and grab the login. Go and grab the SendGrid API key and put it in this environment. So it's not on my disk. It's still in the environment. If you get into a shell, you still get it. But the way that I have my computer set up is anytime you open a new shell, you've got to type in the credentials, my big long password in order to get to my credentials. So you can't just land on my computer and get access
and
to
get what you need. Yeah.
And it's not so that's on disk anywhere.
Yeah, I'm going to add that to my list, my to-do list. Let's add that.
But yeah, we don't have to dig too far. But now the native image piece, it's nice. If we had it, that startup time is faster. The memory footprint is going to be,
and that's actually more important to me than the startup time, because like you were saying, it's like if I can squeeze it into a smaller VM, I pay less.
Yeah. And when we're dealing with 512 megabytes, which for a lot of languages that's plenty. And now with Java and Spring and enterprise grade production ready Spring, it's plenty.
Yeah.
It wasn't that way that long ago, but now it is.
Yeah. I mean, Ensembler I think runs in a 512 M space anyway, but it's not a big application. So
so we're gonna check out browser support, the dir stuff. I can show that. Do you want to see the auto versioning stuff?
Yeah, if you have time. I mean, I know we're running up against your scheduled time, but if you've got time.
We're running up against time.
We could push that off if you want. So Tramstars, I'm assuming that since we can deploy a Docker image, we don't have to write our own Docker file. We just need to create our own image that could be retrieved from somewhere. And you can put for free up on GitHub, because I looked into this in their container registry. You can, there's some limitations around how much bandwidth and some other stuff. But if you're not deploying every day,
you can pull.
I think there is an image size limit, but I think like probably the network usage is going to be the more important thing. But I think if for something like this, as long as you're not deploying every day or multiple times a week, you're probably fine.
Yeah. I still deploy. I have all mine go into my public repo on Docker. And I just have a little name convention so I know what's what.
Yep.
And it works.
Yeah. But the rule is, Tramstars, don't write your own Docker file.
Don't let friends use Docker file.
Because that's what I've heard from DaShaun. He says don't let anybody write Docker files. Like, just generate the image and then put it somewhere. But that does mean you have to generate the image and put it somewhere.
Yeah.
So
I I can show you. I have time. I can show you how I use JGitVer.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All
let's
right.
go back to your project.
All right.
And oh, I showed you my initializer plus plus, and you submitted a PR for it.
Yes.
I don't know if you're running that locally, but in
I'm
there
not.
I got some cool things. It's not magic. What I do is, let me pull up this other project. I add an extension. I'm going to try to find a project that I can talk to real quick. I add an extensions.xml inside of my .mvn directory. And I'm going to just copy and paste this over into Discord so that we can keep the formatting. And I'm going to try to keep the formatting. Oops.
I saw earlier today, and I wanted to say something, but I was not in a position to do so. You're using the 3 backticks instead of the triple double quotes, and I was like, no, it's the triple double quotes.
So here's here's an
Okay.
example. It's actually, I think, the 1.7.1, but I put this into my dot extensions.
So this is just a separate file.
Yep, a separate file inside of .mvn.
Inside, just not inside the wrapper. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So let's do that. New XML.
And there's 2 there because I'm doing ARM64 native and x86 native. So for the JGitVer is the only one that you need. And this is it hasn't been touched in a long time, but it still works. It still does what I need. And I'm going to add this. I'm going to make a little change. I'm going to give you the config, and this is jgitver.config, jgitver.config.xml in the exact same folder.
Okay.
So this config file basically is telling JGitVer how to find the version number. And you've got, I think those are all of them that you can say, hey, grab the last version or do the next version or whichever tag I'm closest to, so that if I'm on a branch somewhere, it'll still give me like a valid branch. I can get it based on the tag. So I can do these really interesting things because like in your POM file, you've got a version.
Right.
And when you're doing a release, you got to change that version somehow. You have to have something around it.
If I remember, I change it manually, and that's about my process. Yeah.
So with what we have right here, if you do a clean package, if you've got tags, it's gonna just do a MVN clean package, and let's see what it gives us for the version.
Just do okay, so I have not yet renamed it from master. It's going to be master. It's saying I can just run this from the ID. What do you want me to do? You want me to do a package?
Package.
Let's just do that.
And what it's going to do at start, it's going to say, hey, where am I? Where am I in Git? Ooh,
I saw it flash something.
And it's going to give you a version based on your tag.
000.
Yep, because you don't have a tag.
Because I don't have a tag.
Yep, inside your repository. Now, the cool thing is like, if we're pushing and we're doing other things in our CI/CD, I don't want to forget that tag. And sometimes I've got other conventions around it. But by using this pattern, by using this plugin, when I tag something, that means something. And when I tag it, that's the version. It doesn't matter what version I have in my POM file. It's the tag.
Right.
And I'm doing more things off of that tag in other systems, right? When I'm reading and analyzing and doing all the stuff, when I'm trying to connect the dots between all the systems, I don't want to have to like check out a repository and then read the tag, read the version from that POM file. It's much easier if I can say git tags. I can see what versions are where.
So now, what's it? What's it using the version for? Is it using the version for anything besides the name of the artifact?
It replaces it. Yep. So it replaces that version. So now your
So it
project.version.
replaces this. So
Yep.
at build time, it replaces this version.
Yep. So my convention is I replace that and I make it version 0 because it's going to get replaced.
Mm-hmm.
So just so that everybody knows when they come in here, that's not where you do your version. And now if
So
I
that
did a git tag
okay.
v0.0.1,
Let's go do that.
right? And this will just be local, right?
What do I want? Just gonna call it.
Yep.
All right.
And now if you do package,
and so that means when I go to my actuator info, it should show up there.
yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the other nice things is
that's my main. Yeah, that's one of my main use cases. Is that's what I want because that's how I know I make sure. Oops.
Yeah, that's the fun part. Like when we're showing this off, I'm like, hey, what version is running? I can show that, I'm running 2 different versions and I can do the canary. I can send 20% of my traffic to version 1 and I can send 80% of my traffic to version 1.1 and I can show it and I can do really cool things and I can tie it together with that info and having the multiple deployments. So did that work? I didn't see it.
Yeah, it certainly generated the right version. And so yeah, I should change this if we're going to do that.
This is my pattern and that it's old. Awesome. It hasn't had updates in years. But it still
if it ain't broke.
Yep. And I've been using it for that long. And yeah, I'm not running into any edge cases really, except for snapshots on Circle CI. For some reason, the way that Circle CI's build process checks out things, it makes JGitVer feel like it's on a snapshot. So it labels things wrong. So I don't do dirty flags and I don't do snapshot. You can have it say, hey, this is not a commit, or this is dirty. You've made a change to this build and it's not committed anywhere. Or you can do a snapshot where it's not on a tag and you can have it tell you those things in your builds.
Right.
But I just have it go to the next one. So the way that I can still git commit to main, but I don't build the images until I say, all my tests are working. I do a git tag v0.0.10. And then, right, I can even be messing around and have that local. It's when I'm ready to, let's take this in production, git push origin tag v0.0.10. And then it's sending that back up to my GitHub, to my project, and then GitHub Actions and Circle CI trigger.
Yeah, and that's the next step. So that's stuff where I want to get sort of a preview environment up and running.
So that I love.
We can do
saw
that.
Your agenda. I don't do a preview environment. So I have these different clusters. And like right now, I've been doing things on the cluster that's on my laptop, and that becomes my preview environment. Because I just build the image, I throw it up to Docker, and then I can have it running on my juice box. And I'm still working on it, right? I'm not ready to take it to production where I might have a production, but I didn't set up my tenants that way. So like if I make a change to what version I want deployed in a production cluster and on my laptop, I didn't separate those two. So by you bringing that up, I'm like, oh, how am I going to tackle this?
Yeah, because I don't need a preview environment, but what I would, but it would be nice to have, but sort of more. So I think there's sort of 2 steps to that. Is one is, I only want it pushed to production, and I guess if I tag it correctly, because what I might want to do is I've been, all the commits we've done today are local. I haven't pushed it up because if I push it, it goes to production, and I'm concerned about Railway's Java 21 support or lack thereof. So I don't want to push it to production, but I do want to push it to GitHub so it's off my machine. So what I want to set up is at least an initial, like, unless it's tagged with a full release or something like that, you can run all the tests, but don't and so I'll have to set up something in Railway to make sure to watch out for that. But it'd be nice to be able to with one step sort of push it to GitHub and say, I want to just make sure this works okay off my machine. Let me check that on Koyeb because it's free, and then I'll shut it down. And then it's like, okay, it's okay. Or maybe I do want a preview because I want people to look at the new UI and try that out.
Well, the other thing that I mentioned before we started was that generate the native image, run all your tests against the native image. You could do that against a regular JVM image,
right?
But that pattern of my integration test, maybe I don't run those here because it takes 2 minutes to build that native image. But maybe in my pipeline or my GitHub action, I run my unit tests and then I run the integration tests.
Right.
Whether it's got a tag or not, just run the integration test and build the image, run all of those tests and make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
And I'll get a green on my action, right? My GitHub action will say, yeah, everything's working. Right. And then maybe I decide I'm ready to go to production. I do the git push V tag. So in my actions, I'm going to just point you to a URL. I have those Circle CI and GitHub actions where I show you how to filter. Don't do this unless it's got this tag, this V tag.
Right. And that's what I'll want to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, hopefully this is valuable. Hopefully this is fun.
This was awesome. Look at all the stuff we got done.
Like, that's great. It feels good.
All right.
I want to do it again.
So do I. We got stuff to do.
I enjoy this. I'll say it again. I really enjoy hanging out, and I know that I like to talk and ramble, but
hey, this is to me one of the best parts about streaming with somebody else is we get to chat about stuff and talk about stuff and ramble or rant, whatever. That's the best part.
It's good. So I am hoping that after a little bit of a break, that I really want to do a Vaadin. Let's go from the start and let's just talk about it. I'll tell you why I like it. And we'll see if we can connect the dot on some tests. And and we'll have some fun. I'm looking forward to that already.
All right. Well, have a great vacation. Have a great time in vacation and come back refreshed.
I will try.
And all y'all out there, I'll be streaming some stuff next week solo. Hopefully some more stuff with Mike on his song themes, but I've got some features for Ensembler to work on. And I might have to back off the Java 21 change if Railway doesn't support it. We'll see if I can figure that out.
I'm excited to see how that plays out.
And hey, Mike's there.
Hey, Mike. I've enjoyed watching Mike.
Yeah.
At least this week. I know I've dropped in a few times. You guys are working on stuff this week.
Yeah. And so we'll so lots more streaming, folks. And that's it.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great rest of your day, and thanks for helping out, DaShaun. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Bye, folks.